What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to a continued discussion on the difficulty levels in Fromsoftware games. If you have not seen the previous video, there is a link in the top right of your screen. My last video caused some waves on Reddit. With all the good points and not so good points to debate, I thought it deserved its own video. So let's dive right in, mother truckers! While a lot of people did argue that there's no reason why they can't have an easy mode, I do not think people are fully aware of what they're asking for. Like this comment here that says, there's absolutely no harm in it. It's just an option. You wouldn't have to use it. If it adds enjoyment for other folks and doesn't impact my own experience, I could care less. There were a few other comments here, but this one was probably the most, how should I say it, polite? The general consensus around these comments, though, was that it was easy to add in these modes, so what was the big deal? Well, actually, there's a few problems. The first is, how the hell do you even add an easy mode? One comment brought up was the Demon's Bell in Sekiro, which you have an option to ring in the game. By ringing this bell, you increase the damage that enemies do to you. The argument is, if you can add damage, why can't you take it away? These are actually two very, very different statements. When you ring the bell, it is because you are confident in your skills. You already have a firm grasp on the game, and the enemies doing more damage doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot, because often the player at this point in the game knows how to parry, they know how to block, they know how to dodge. On the other side of the equation, for an easy mode, you could toggle it, but it wouldn't solve the issue. The issue with these games is people refusing to learn the mechanics, boss patterns, and overall gameplay. So we lower the damage slightly. Great, what now? People who did not want to learn the game still won't, so now they will just die in 5 hits instead of 3. The root problem isn't the damage, it's people's inability or not wanting to learn the game. I would almost wager that if an easy mode was added, it would just piss people off more, because now they have the mode and they still can't beat the game. After I debated this point with them, a few people said, okay, so now how about we slow down the enemies, and also make them have fewer attacks? I want everybody to think about that for 2 seconds here. Does anyone even know how entitled this sounds? So you expect a company who already takes 3 years to release a game to not only develop a full game, but now they have to go back and literally redesign all the enemies just because a few people are too lazy to learn how to block and tumble? That is a really ludicrous thing to say. Why should a company spend another entire budget to satisfy that need? I think that's all we really need to say about this one. And is an easy mode even feasible? Maybe, but I don't think it'd solve the issue. There were many comments that stated having an easy mode takes nothing away from the game. The one comment summarized a good amount of other comments, so let's dissect it a bit. First, adding an easy mode takes nothing away from the hardcore players. Then, real life obligations get in the way of learning the game. And finally, I won't be buying another one until they make it easier. Okay, so let's start with the first part. This is something that gets brought up every single time this conversation comes up. I have to disagree that it takes nothing away, since a big part of these games is the community and beating them together. The problem is that not every game is made for every person. By making the games easier, it takes away from the thing that makes these games into a culture, and what set them apart from every other series. The other part is the accomplishment. It would no longer be, hey guys, I beat this part, and them responding, holy shit, how did you do that? It would become, oh, okay. Well, on what difficulty? So really, what's the point? I had a conversation with a good streamer friend of mine, and his comment was, okay, if you make an easy mode, do people not realize that the bulk of the game's length is hidden behind how hard it is? So you might have an easy mode, but now you're going to beat the game in a couple of hours rather than the couple of weeks it should take. Now you're paying $70 for a game that you beat in a few hours. Does nobody see the problem with that? So what you're telling me is that you are going to pay $70 for a game, beat it in a couple of hours and be satisfied? I don't think so. You're gonna feel ripped off. As for having life responsibilities, that one made me laugh quite heartedly, so thank you for the comment. We all have life responsibilities, and you're no one special. I have a full-time job, a wife, sports, spending 30 hours a week on YouTube, music lessons, music recordings, and school. Guess what? I have no problem beating the games. No one says you have to beat the game in a few days. If it takes you 2 months, who gives a shit? Just play when you have time. If you use all the tools given to you in the game, then you won't have a problem. Hell, FromSoft gives you a dummy to practice on in Sekiro, in case you are having problems. They even add things into the lore to make the gameplay easier. This is a pretty shit excuse in my opinion. And if you won't buy another one, that's fine too, because every game is just, it's not meant for everyone. This next comment was amazing. This is a response to someone who said, "Why would I spend $50 on a game I can't beat?" This guy summarizes it and says, "Why the hell did you buy it then?" It's just golden. It's very true. FromSoft games have been hard since Kingsfield and Armored Core. You know their games are difficult, just as much as everyone else. You do not like the aspect, so why buy it? It's like sticking your hand in the fire and screaming that the fire is burning you. It makes no sense. Frankly, if you do that, I have no sympathy for you at all. Alright, so let's hit the elephant in the room. On Twitter, YouTube videos, and articles, people have been saying, well, what about the handicapped people? This one makes my blood boil for many different reasons. Okay, first of all, where the hell were these PC advocates for the handicap when the previous 5 games were released? Or how about nearly every other video game ever? Someone with a severe handicap is going to have just as many problems with Monster Hunter, God of War, Halo, or any other first-person shooter. Hell, I would even wager a guess that they have problems with basic Mario games. You don't think that they would have had problems with precision jumps in Super Mario Odyssey? So you might ask yourself, why is FromSoft the only one that is getting hate for their games being too difficult? I'll tell you why. It's because FromSoft was the only company to brand themselves as a company that makes difficult games. That's the only reason why they get hated on. What I found really funny is that I can't even include any of the handicap arguments here because they were too lewd. In fact, the only actual response I could was from an actual person with a handicap who said, "Handicapped gamers have no issues beating it, including myself. Adding an easy mode in order to pander to disabled gamers would be a disservice. You have to learn and adapt." I had a chance to talk to this young man afterwards, and he stated he has an illness that causes him to be severely sight impaired, and he's also deaf. I want all of you to also let this sink in for a second. The only physically disabled person in the discussion basically told all y'all to get good, son. He beat the games, so why can't you with your able bodies? We kind of already talked about this next point in the previous video, but let's reiterate just because people actually did comment on that part. Video games are art, and people are absolutely asking FromSoft to sacrifice their artistic vision just for the sake of a few people who want the easy way out, instead of playing the games like they're supposed to be played. Would you ask any other artist in the world to sacrifice their artistic vision just because you found it too hard to understand the meaning behind their music, their movies, their paintings, or whatever have you? No, you probably wouldn't. There are a lot of comments that stated they won't buy another game until it's easier, or that their friends didn't like the difficulty. You know what? That's perfectly fine. There are a ton of games out there that I sure as hell do not like that's super popular with a lot of other people. There's nothing wrong with that. You do not have to like every game, and companies do not have to make every game to satisfy every single person. That is an unrealistic expectation to throw at anyone. This is just literally how business and life in general works. You will never be able to please everyone. The last point that I want to touch on is, when did video games having consequences become a bad thing? If you compare Dark Souls or Sekiro to old video games on, let's say, the Super Nintendo, I would almost say these games are way easier. Or did everyone forget the likes of Mario, Donkey Kong, Double Dragon, Contra, hell, even Tetris? When you died too much in those games, you just restarted from the beginning. You lost all of your progress. There was no such thing as a soft fail. You were just kind of expected to bend over and take that sausage up your noob ass. The problem is that so many games these days have zero consequences. So when you have a game that actually has consequences, and let's be honest, the consequences in these games are very, very minor, then you have a pile of people whining that it's too difficult. Anyways, us gamers that actually like a challenge and have the ability to learn should just ignore these people that would want a participation trophy just for getting last place in a sports event. Well, that's about all I have to say. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to let us know by liking and commenting on the video, as it really does help our direction. If you really enjoyed this, then feel free to subscribe and check the channel for our upload schedule. Until then, I will leave you with this. Challenge is not a bad thing in life. They are what make us strong in every aspect of our life. So take those challenges and grow. Until next time, toodles!